In 1997, she was on two shortlists. One was the list of actresses studios were fighting over after she won the Oscar. The other one she wouldn't find out about for 22 years. That second list was Harvey Weinstein's, and being on it didn't mean he wanted you. It meant he'd made a phone call. One phone call, sometimes two. To a director, to a casting office, to someone whose name you'd recognize. The call went something like this. She's difficult. Don't bother, she never heard the call. Nobody told her it happened. And so for the next 2 decades, Mira Sorvino kept showing up to auditions, kept doing the work, kept trying to figure out what she was doing wrong. She wasn't doing anything wrong. That's the whole story, really. Except it isn't. Because the part that gets me, the part I couldn't shake after I went down this particular rabbit hole, isn't the blacklist. It's what 20 years of not knowing does to a person who's trying to be honest with herself. Let me tell you something about Mira Sorvino that the Romy and Michelle poster is not going to tell you. She graduated from Harvard, not attended, not took some classes, graduated cum laude in East Asian Studies. She speaks Mandarin, actually speaks it conversationally, the way someone speaks a language they learned because they were genuinely curious about the world, not because it looked good on a resume. I don't think most of us knew that. I didn't, for a long time. And the reason it matters is that the narrative we got, the one where Mira Sorvino was a beautiful girl in Hollywood who got lucky and then somehow lost her footing, that narrative is not only wrong, it's almost the exact inverse of who she actually was. Her father is Paul Sorvino. Yes, that one. Goodfellas, 50 years in the business, one of the most technically trained actors of his generation. She grew up watching how this industry actually works, not the fantasy of it, the machinery. She knew what a good role looked like. She knew what a fair deal was supposed to feel like. She wasn't walking into Hollywood blind, she was walking in with her eyes fully open. Which is part of what makes everything that came next so hard to make sense of, even from the outside, even now. The Oscars. March 1996. She was 29 years old. And she walked up to that microphone in a dress that wasn't trying too hard, and she cried the specific way people cry when something they've worked for actually happens, not the composed, prepared cry, but the one that catches you mid-sentence. She thanked her father. He was in the audience. He was crying too. It's a small moment in the context of what we're talking about, but I keep coming back to it because it captures something real about where she was. This wasn't a surprise. This wasn't a long shot. She had earned this specifically for a performance that required her to be funny and heartbreaking and completely unguarded in the same scene. Woody Allen had given her a character that could have been a caricature, and she made her a person. The reviews said things like revelatory. They weren't wrong. And then, it was before the ink on the Oscar coverage was even dry, she made Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. You know this movie. Most of us do, in a way that has nothing to do with film criticism and everything to do with the fact that it lived in VHS players and late-night cable rotations for years. The two of them, Mira Sorvino and Lisa Kudrow, doing physical comedy at a level that made it look effortless, which is the exact thing that means it was incredibly hard. Think about what that combination represents. Mighty Aphrodite and Romy and Michelle in the same calendar year. Dramatic and comic, Cannes Film Festival and a mall multiplex. Both of them hers, both of them working, both of them remembered. At the time, Variety put her name on a list of actors who would define the next decade of Hollywood. She was 30 years old. And somewhere, in a hotel in Toronto the year before, something had already happened that would make that prediction wrong. I want to be careful about how I tell this next part. Not because it's unclear, it's actually remarkably documented for something that was kept quiet for so long. but because the way you tell it matters. There are two ways to narrate what happened to Mira Sorvino, and only one of them is actually true to her experience. The easy version is, Harvey Weinstein blacklisted her because she rejected him. Full stop. Villain, victim, done. The true version is longer and in some ways harder because it involves the specific texture of what it feels like to have a wall put up around you that you can't see. To spend years walking into it and walking into it and walking into it and never understanding why you can't get through. Here's what the timeline actually looks like. Toronto International Film Festival. She was there for Mighty Aphrodite. Harvey Weinstein was, as he was at virtually every major festival in that era, everywhere, the most powerful buyer in independent film, the man who could take a small movie and turn it into an Oscar contender. Everyone knew this. Everyone worked around it. She encountered him. She rejected him. She left. She didn't tell anyone. Not because she didn't want to, but because in 1995 there was no framework for telling anyone. The infrastructure for that conversation didn't exist yet. The word for what he was doing hadn't made it into the mainstream vocabulary. You either avoided him and hoped, or you didn't. And you dealt with the consequences in silence. She avoided him. And she dealt with the consequences in silence. And for 22 years. The mechanics of what happened next are not glamorous or dramatic. That's actually the point. No single phone call she could have traced, no meeting she was excluded from and knew about, just fewer calls back. Projects that were going in a different direction, roles she was right for and then wasn't. Directors she knew liked her work who suddenly seemed unavailable. Terry Zwigoff, the director, Ghost World, Bad Santa, critically respected, someone whose taste and professional judgment mattered, said later that every time Harvey Weinstein's name came up in a professional context, and Mira Sorvino's name also came up, the call ended. Not an argument, not a confrontation, just the line went quiet. And then there was Peter Jackson. This is the detail that when I read it, I had to stop and sit with for a minute. Peter Jackson was casting The Lord of the Rings. This was 1998 early development, and he was looking for specific kinds of actors, people with presence and range and the ability to make you believe in something completely invented. He was considering Mira Sorvino for a role. Harvey Weinstein told him she was a nightmare to work with. Peter Jackson has said this publicly. He confirmed it himself in 2017 after the story finally broke. He said he and Fran Walsh were told by Weinstein that both Mira Sorvino and Ashley Judd were, and I'm quoting, nightmares to work with and should be avoided at all costs. Jackson said he assumed it was true. Why wouldn't he? This was the most powerful man in independent film, a man who had produced and distributed prestige titles for 20 years. Why would he lie about that? She didn't know about this conversation. Not in 1998, not in 2001, not in 2005 or 2009 or 2013. She was still out there, working, wondering, taking smaller roles in Italian productions, action films that went straight to DVD markets overseas, TV movies, a Hallmark project here and there. She did the work because she didn't know how to stop doing the work. It was the only thing she knew how to do. And here's the part that stays with me. When you don't know you're being blocked, you will find another explanation. You'll wonder if you came across badly in a meeting. You'll wonder if there's something wrong with the way you present in a room. You'll wonder if your taste is off, if your choices are wrong, if there's something about you that's fundamentally not quite right for where the industry is going. You'll try adjusting. You'll try being more of this, less of that. You'll spend years having a conversation with yourself about your own limitations, a conversation that was never about you to begin with. I'm not speculating about her inner life. I'm drawing on what she said publicly, carefully, in a handful of interviews over the years. She's described the confusion, The wondering, the trying to understand. The thing she never once said was, "I know exactly what happened." Because she didn't. Not until 2017. There's a specific kind of not there-ness that's different from being gone. Being gone is clean. It's a decision, an announcement, an ending you can point to. The audience feels it and adjusts. What happened to Mira Sorvino is different. She was still there, still working, still showing up, still making things. Her name was still attached to projects. You'd see her in something and think, "Oh, there she is." And then she'd go quiet again, and you'd forget to keep track. From roughly 2000 to 2017, her output tells a very specific story. Small films, international productions, TV guest roles. Nothing that matches what she was in 1996, but nothing that looks, from the outside, like a person who was being systematically excluded from her own industry. It just looks like a career that leveled off, got quieter, became ordinary in a way that seemed slightly hard to explain but easy to accept. We accepted it. Most of us did. I think we told ourselves she'd made different choices, prioritized family maybe, or moved away from the mainstream on purpose. There was something comforting about that story. It required no one to be responsible. She got married in 2004. Christopher Backus, actor. Far younger than her, and by all accounts, someone she genuinely loves. They have 4 children. She built a life that had nothing to do with the industry's opinion of her, which turned out to be the right thing to do, given what the industry was doing. And there's one other piece of this that almost nobody covers. She became an ambassador for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Anti-human trafficking work. She testified before Congress. She traveled to places where the cameras weren't rolling to work on things that had nothing to do with her career and everything to do with what she actually cared about. She did this while she was being quietly pushed out of the industry she'd trained for her entire life. There's something in that I find difficult to summarize without reaching for a word that would be too easy. So I won't. I'll just leave it as a fact. While Hollywood was closing its doors to her for reasons she wasn't allowed to know, she went and found other doors, ones that led somewhere worth going. The film world mostly didn't notice. December 14th, 2017. That's the date Peter Jackson published his statement. He named her. He named Ashley Judd. He said explicitly that Harvey Weinstein had told him both women were difficult, and that he had believed it, and that in retrospect, he was deeply sorry. She was 50 years old when she read those words. She had been waiting, without knowing she was waiting, without knowing what she was waiting for 22 years. Her response when she posted it was not what I expected. She didn't express relief exactly, or vindication. She said she felt it for the other women, the ones whose stories were still coming out, the ones who'd carried things even longer. She cried, but she cried outward, not inward. I've thought about that a lot, she testified. When the moment came, when there was a legal process and her experience had documented relevance, she showed up. Not dramatically, not as a centerpiece of anyone's narrative. She showed up because it was the thing to do. In 2025, she made her Broadway debut in Chicago. The role requires a specific kind of presence, physical, precise, confident in the body. She was 58 years old. There's a Romy and Michelle sequel in development. She and Lisa Kudrow are both attached. I don't know if it'll be good. I don't know if anything can fully capture what that movie was for the people who grew up with it. But the fact that she's walking back into that world, that she's choosing to go back rather than letting it stay behind her, says something. I'm not entirely sure what it says. I'm working on it. What I keep coming back to is this. For 22 years, she operated under an explanation she'd invented for herself, because no one gave her a real one. She told herself some version of "I must be doing something wrong." She adjusted, she tried, she kept going. She built a marriage and raised 4 kids and did work that mattered in places where no one was watching. And then, one December morning, she found out. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She never was. She doesn't get those 22 years back. That's not how any of this works. The Lord of the Rings role went to someone else. The years in between are what they are, smaller than they should have been, for reasons that had nothing to do with her talent. But there's something that happened on December 14th, 2017, that can't be undone either. She got to stop wondering. After 22 years of a conversation she was having with herself about her own limitations, her own mistakes, her own failure to understand why the room kept closing, she finally got to put it down. The weight of a question you can't answer is a specific kind of heavy. She doesn't have to carry that one anymore.